All right, I thought I would describe my life through movies. Um, let's see, there's Kubo and the Two Strings, Neverending Story, The Book of Kells, um, maybe Stalker as well, the 1979 Russian movie, and there's what else? I think there was a fifth movie, but I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, and I just came up with this stuff. But let's get into it. So this is more of a sort of schizo biography based on movies, and my real life paths of development and experiences and so on. Now, what you'll notice is there's a distinctly chosen one element in a way, being the protagonist and so on in these movies. And not just like the protagonist, but like something about them is special and unique, that is not necessarily entirely shared by everyone else. Something not necessarily special in of themselves as people, but there's something about them that is chosen by God, basically, or something like that. Um, so the movie Stalker is basically what happened was one of my prophetic friends basically said like, "You're the stalker." Um, Andrei Tarkovsky, and then said, another time he said, "You're Brandon, and your dad is your uncle, and your ex girlfriend is a fairy for the Book of Kells, and you're Atreyu and Bastion for the Neverending Story," and he mentioned Kubo and the Two Strings, and then said Nana is a baboon or something. Um, and When I was a very young child, my grandfather uh, told me something which is identical to the Beetle Knight when he said, "You have my undivided attention. I promise I won't even blink. Do I have eyelids?" And he also shares another element to the Beetle Knight, which is later in life he developed dementia or Alzheimer's. I'm not sure which. But that was like a thing. So I know for a fact that I've shared elements with these things, these characters, and so on. I'll start with Stalker. So basically, what I believe is that, more specifically to the Stalker and his wife, and keep in mind, this is not like a run, like hiding behind bushes, chasing after a woman at night kind of thing. It's more of a like hunting for God kind of thing. Um, the wife basically says that she knows he's useless, but and that he's a bit of a he's not of this world. So there's something about him that's off somehow, conventionally and so on. And I've developed a bit of a schizo sort of approach to life, or received a schizo experience to life the last 8 years, basically. You know, and so that's an element there, and then the Fantasia element of Atreyu and Bastion in the Neverending Story and so on. And also, I've experienced definitely prophetic things. I've got a digital record of prophecies made because I was the one searching them up at the command of a friend. So there's like actually a digital record of someone like looking up things that didn't even exist back in the day in my area. Read 2004 to 8 for most of it. Which is basically the never-ending story when Atreyu, the hero in Fantasia, discovers the walls with pictograms of all of his experiences, and then the one of the wolf creature, and then suddenly he sees the wolf creature in actuality hiding in the rocks or hiding in a hole in the wall. So it's sort of like it's like a confirmation that prophecy existed of your previous actions, and then one prophecy that points to the future, and then it happens before you can really digest it. Um, Now, the other thing is, there is, of course, the never ending story, The Nothing. And in the Book of Kells, it's Crom. It's sort of like a non a non-physical spiritual devouring snake. And in the never-ending story, you don't necessarily see it because it's quite hidden. But when Atreyu looks into the second oracle or second gate, the mirror that shows who you truly are, it shows Bastion in the reflection. Not the warrior hero of Fantasia, but the little child who's lost his mother. And then we turn to Kubo and the two strings, and we see that Kubo was separated from his mother at an early age. And the baboon and the beetle are his parental figures, along with the emblem on his backpack or something of his father. So there's like the family system, and in the movie you see that the child is separated from mother and father. And so on. And the truth is, when I was 4 years old, my mother lost custody of me, and so on. And I had a falling out with my father around 23 years old, and so on. And I'm about 39 now, but we've been kind of patching up. And due to being in debt slightly and not having the spare money because I'm paying debts back, to not get a phone, I haven't gotten a phone for a while, and I don't have the money at the moment to get a phone, so I can't actually call my dad, basically. And so on. Which brings us to the Book of Kells. And essentially, there's two aspects to this, or three aspects to this. One is, or four. There's the boy, the son. There's the threat of annihilation, evil incarnate itself, non-existence, a constant devouring of oneself by some dark, immaterial object. A girl who cannot face that thing. And then there's a father figure who is a little strict and intolerant of opening of being open in some way. And then there's a fifth element, which is that the warrior fails, but becomes the, in Kubo and the Two Strings case, Bard, and in the Neverending Stories case, Atreyu leads to Bastion. There's like a hard there's a hard sort of like dividing line that's like it's Atreyu, and then it's like, oh, you brought the child that needed to make the wishes and give me a name, says the girl, and then it suddenly Bastion's there, and so on. So it's like a reflection of the two halves of the person, basically. And Kubo and the Two Strings does this as well. And basically, what my life has done has taken a very strong-armed approach in the Kubo and the Two Strings. You got to find the sword, the armor, and the helmet thing while you're naturally disposed towards good vibes and good times and like feeling it and that warm sort of approach to life and so on, as opposed to the cold, hardcore life. And the when Bastion starts making wishes and gives the childlike empress her name, it's sort of like Kubo and the Two Strings when he switches from the sword, armor, and helmet to the strings given to him by his father and mother to play music and use a different sort of magic that actually wins. And it's also similar in a way to Brandon in his initial. Well, Brendan doesn't actually have it entirely. Yeah, he doesn't have the first part entirely. But the uncle raises him, pushing him in that direction more than he would actually, more than Brendan would actually be already. Otherwise, sorry. And for the final part, Brandon writes the Book of Kells to give light to a darkened land full of chaos. And he gives order to it through his book. And what it means is with Crom and the childlike empress's name, they give definition to chaos. And then with the Book of Kells and the reestablishment of Fantasia, they emanate their imagination. And the baboon in Kubo and the Two Strings and the Beetle Knight are the caretakers, sort of like the luck dragon. And my grandpa, my adoptive grandfather was actually quite like the luck dragon in a way, and quite like the Beetle Knight. And he was quite like Aiden in the Book of Kells. And so on. And what I'm learning is that my video collection is sort of like me writing the Book of Kells, in a way, or at least it's my attempt to, basically, to provide light and order to a dark and chaotic world and civilization. I don't know if it's ever going to be that important, but this is the attempt to do so. And if my friend's prophecy was played out fully, there was a journey into some very schizophrenic territory, establishing the boundaries of where it's valid and where it's not, and then expressing the valid parts of it to reorder the world and bring new life into a dead world. And part of this is also giving an identity to a girl in my ex's case, she's definitely a woman, but a, a sort of like a very endangered female from the essence of evil itself, if that makes sense. And after a period of separation is a bringing of life and vibrancy, a vibrant life essence to my parents in conjunction with the woman. And there are barbarians. And my friend said the wolves in the Book of Kells are reactionaries. They're initially scary as hell, and then they're the ones that save the people that they save. They counter the barbarians. And Atreyu has to kill the physical entity, the wolf creature, by stabbing it. So it's not just the nothing, there's like a physical servant of it too. And the two sisters might represent feminism, basically. The two aunts of Kubo. And it's like, okay, yeah. However, I'm not saying this to be super nasty to the left in this case, or feminism, or anything like that. I mean, I could theoretically, under this description, call them servants of evil, in a way. But, like, I'm not going to say the real people are necessarily the servants of evil in that entirely. Like, I don't want to overextend my condemnation of people that happen to be a bit feminist or a bit socialist or something like that. You know, people make mistakes all the time and so on, so I'm not going to say they're totally evil. I think that sometimes they can be very evil, but I don't know if anyone's ever totally evil. However, the way to success for me is different than the way to success for the reactionary wolves. It's not the warrior path necessarily. It's not, you know what I mean? It's like a very there's there's two classes in Dungeons and Dragons that I'm sort of riffing off here. And my friend also mentioned another thing as well on top of it, which is what I'm understanding now. And he was right about this because he knew the future very extremely, which is why he told me what to look up and why there's a digital record of me looking these things up in the past that's independently verifiable on Google Trends. He told me I'm a paladin and I should become a bard. So that's kind of like another correlation in the direction of. And the best way to describe it is I've been trying to be some sort of hardcore, super militant, tough guy for justice. And what I'm better suited towards naturally as a person, even though I was kind of forced into the um, tough guy thing from my dad a little while, because he's the uncle and so on, and there's a bit of separation, and he regrets his walls, not books kind of approach to life in general. I'm not referencing the border wall here. I think the border wall is actually reasonable. However, I think the general attitude towards the rest of civilization and society and everyone else should be books, not walls, for the most part. Or maybe if you build a wall, it's not like the only thing you do or something. You know what I mean? Like, sharing. They say bridges, not walls. Um, at least for inside of my civilization, bridges or books, not walls, is what I'm called to do. And my strength, my true strength, and my success is going to be found in the development of the bardic path, not in the literal sense of like being a musician and like being a total charisma master and seducing all the women and stuff like that, but just kind of that sort of like there's a song by Endless Taverns called Bardic Inspiration. And basically, there's there's a it's a song that represents what I need to develop towards, away from all the holy knight, warrior of God, um, austere, literal fist fights and beating the crap out of people and like the combat courage and so on that I've developed in the past from a tough upbringing. My dad was literally like, "Oh, you got beat up at 5? Why didn't you just punch him? I'm not going to help you. You have to do it yourself." I was like an 8-year-old bully when I was 5, stealing things from me and stuff and beating me up. And I was like, "Oh, just beat him up yourself when you're 5 and he's 8." Just like, okay, that's a little, but I did learn it. But now I have to learn the softer side in a sense. So the cold and hard life of masculinity I've learned, and now I have to learn the soft and warm parts of masculinity to compensate. And that's where I'm going to find my actual strengths and success and so on. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've been pretty grumpy and nasty at times in the past. However, I have been working on this existential crisis guide and toolkit for some time. And basically, the purpose of it is literally to um, give people a solid and comprehensive understanding of the relationship between various groups of people that are common to society. Um, it's it is sort of a thing that says the minorities need to understand they are not the majority, they are not usual, they're not normal, and need to submit to the dominance of the normal people. But it's not saying they shouldn't have a place in society. And that's what that definitions thing is about. The defining things and marking things within the chaos to order them. So yeah. And the movie Stalker, I've already done 2 videos on to some extent, so it's like, okay, I'm not going to get into it too deeply. But I will add one last thing to it, which is there are 4 or 5 people who are men in the movie Stalker. There's a wife and a child as well. But there are 4 or 5 men. Now, it might be that God is the bartender in it. So that's one man. Then there's the stalker. Then there's Porcupine, his mentor in stalking, God, hunting for God. And then there's the poet and the scientist. The scientist doesn't understand God, and he doesn't understand himself. The poet understands himself, but doesn't understand God. Porcupine understands God, but not himself. And the stalker, the protagonist of it, basically, understands himself and God to some extent. I mean, maybe they have a slight understanding, not just no understanding, but you know what I mean by doesn't understand, basically. You know. And when they do have understanding, it might not be a full understanding, but it's a pretty significant chunk. So it's like a generality kind of thing. It's like a simple way of putting it. So this is my experience. And when whatever caused this stuff I call schizo to hit happened, it was like a face full of you get chaos and evil and malevolence and like and Satan and the snake and nothingness and everything like that. And I had to deal with it. And then I can give definition. And then I can give expression of the immaterial, the non-material that is valid from experiencing it in the positive direction. And my future wife, my ex-girlfriend, I don't know if this is going to happen, but I suspect it will, heavily. Not for any reasonable reasons or anything logical or rational in the usual sense, but because I was literally promised it by a friend who happened to know her name when she was like 8 years old, and she wasn't even in the country. It was just a random name, and I had no idea who it was. And then, like, I made a fateful decision one day to just not chase for women and just refine myself and work on myself and so on, because I was traumatized and abused a little bit, and not put together very well. And I was like, well, I'm just going to make myself better. And when the woman comes as promised, I'll be ready for her. Oh, I didn't work on myself that good when she first arrived, and basically fell in my lap practically. Like, it was like literally like she added me as a friend and then like started talking to me all the time when I was like saying, I don't think this is the best thing to do necessarily. And like eventually I just was like, well, she's totally in love with me, despite all my efforts to make her not want me. Okay, I'll commit. And I've committed. Um, the first time I committed, basically saying like basically, I can wait that long. I can just play video games and work and like do studying and stuff like that, and like she'll just like eventually I'll get a woman if I do that. And then the second time is when I had her already a little bit, and like I'm just sort of like working on myself on the deeper aspects of my character and relationship with God and the world, and uh, tightening up around my relationships with other people. So the first one was practical studies of mechanics of the universe, and the second phase is more like the meta principles and synergies of principles, and my experience and wisdom in relations with people. And the first time I didn't realize that she would actually like exist. I had no idea. She literally just like decided to come into my life. And the second time, I know she exists, and I'm literally going on like the fact that she came into my life as promised when I waited the first time, and she's probably promised to come back into my life the second time and permanently this time. And I'm much more impatient, um, but I just keep plugging along, doing my thing, refining myself, developing myself, cultivating myself, or being cultivated by God to be worthy of her after getting a taste of what it's like to be with her. Um, you know, and it's kind of a hero's journey if you follow the steps of the hero's journey in a sense as well. You know, um, like an initial taste of success, and then you total collapse of anything good, and then like you get rescued from the worst of it, uh, and then like you hit the heights of glory, and then you come back to the real world with like gifts or treasures or value that helps people, and you just live a kind of normalish life outwardly, but you've also been changed to see things with new eyes, like a child again, without the immaturity exactly, but like the sort of innocence regained after losing it. And if I'm not mistaken, that is me going through the process so that I can lead my future wife through her version of it, without too many hiccups. Um, I don't know if this is going to be the case, but based on everything that I was told and what's happened and what I've done and so on, um, I think it might be the case. I think my friend said you're archetypical or archetypal, or you're an archetype or archetype. So, or he might have said you're a meme, but he said meme back in like 2004. So I don't know if that's like a 4chan reference. I don't think he was on 4chan necessarily. But I think he. It's the same friend that knew the future and like objective like statements of like this happens, and then it did, and I was like, how the hell did he know that? You know, it was like very specific and stuff. And it was like in the future, and it was like a bunch of stuff that lined up. And it was like stuff in my control in some theoretical sense, like he was telling me to do it in the future, and like then I did it in the future, so it was like maybe it was subliminal messaging. But then there's other parts where it was like actually completely out of my control. And it was like, oh, okay. That happened, and no one should have predicted it because that's kind of wild and irrational for anyone 20 years ago to figure out. You know, like when Charlie Kirk was 12 years old, my friend told me about Charlie Kirk martyrdom and then said he's a 12-year-old. And I was like, why is God killing a 12-year-old? He's like, no, he's 31 when he dies. He's like, okay. So I look up Charlie Kirk martyrdom, and then I was like, there's a Google Trends digital record of someone in British Columbia doing that because he told me to look it up, and I did. Um, yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, I don't want to say I'm the chosen one because that's a very schizo take. But at the same time, like, a lot of my life has been rather spooky filled as of the last 8 years. And some of it was kind of spooky before, but I just ignored it. Like, I was like a very, like, despite the fact I got visions of the future, and despite the fact I got prophetic dreams, and despite the fact that, like, before schizo hit, I had like a, like a situation and my friend told me what to do and I was like, oh right, my friend told me to do this and I did it and then it like actually worked out. And it was kind of like it was weird. It was really weird. Um, Basically, I was told like basically I wrote something to a influential person and I was like, no, this is stupid. They'll never believe it. It's kind of paranoid, you know. It's too self-important or something. Or I'm not really wise enough to make this advice or to them or whatever or whatever. And then like I was gonna delete it. I had my hand on the delete key, and I think I deleted like 3 letters out of like uh, 2 or 3 paragraphs of writing. And then I remembered my friend saying like the world ends unless you talk to this person. You talk to him, and then it was like that year that I was actually in. And then he's like, and then I was like, oh, okay. My friend predicted this 8 years ago, and they didn't even have their YouTube channel at the time. And they mentioned it, and they got me to look it up, and it was like I looked up their YouTube channel, and it didn't even exist. And then I looked up their real name as well, which got revealed like pretty shortly after they made their channel. So it's like 8 to 10 years difference, and it was like accurate. You know, I kind of had a vibe that this person was important that I was messaging, and that they'd be influential and change world history to a certain extent. But I didn't realize, like, at the time that I was, like, actually supposed to message them. And then I remember what my friend said, and I messaged them, and then it turns out that they kind of went towards some things publicly that I messaged them privately on within about 2 weeks. So I don't know if I had impact or not, but I think I might have based on the fact I was told to do it. And like it was like 8 years in advance or 10 years in advance of like the event happening that I was told this. And I was just like, what the hell's going on here? So I don't know if I'm like somehow chosen by God or something weird like that, or like, well, what's going on? But like, I've had some spooky experiences, and I've had some like commands that I followed, along with the accurate predictions of things that no one would have predicted when the predictions were made. And it's not intuitive analysis. It's definitely not intuitive analysis. It's like like I actually literally thought my friends telling me the future were schizophrenic, because like it didn't make any sense whatsoever. And I was already like into politics and history and stuff like that. So when they were talking about it, I was like, "What are you talking about?" You know, because I'm no slouch for intuitive analysis, but like, you know, there's a limit to my capabilities, and like I knew I was pretty smart in some ways, and this is the way I was smart in. And my friends were not like, they were high schoolers, you know, and they weren't studying all the stuff like I was in like politics and culture and history and stuff like that. Um, they were just like video game players that just started spouting like Trump gets shot in the ear back in like 2006. Yeah, I was like, what the hell are you talking about? So like, it's actually freakish. So I know for a fact that I've had some weird, spooky things. The only question is whether I'm overtly chosen by God, or just chosen by God for regular salvation and did some important thing here or there once or twice. And like, it's not exactly world shatteringly important, but like, it's kind of helpful or something like that. But I mean, I was literally told the world ends unless I message someone, and I did. So because I remembered my friend telling me that, um, and like they were the friend that told me a lot of the future, and like 80% of it, 90% of what he said has actually come to pass. It's just ridiculous. It's insane. It's mind-boggling. You know, I was told that I'm a Manchurian candidate for God and the prophets. I was told I'm God's cat's paw. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's insane. Yeah. I mean, I was told there was other things too. Like I was told I was Palpatine, basically. You know, I was like, oh, that's not a good sign. You know, because Palpatine picks a fight with one side and then picks a fight with the other side on behalf of the first side or something. You know what I mean? Like he's setting up everyone to fight each other. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, he's playing both sides. I was like, am I doing that? Did I do that? That's horrible. I feel terrible. You know, I tried to game end like 46 times over feeling like I was doing that, or being told by synchronicity that I was doing it, and I was like, oh crap, I did that? That's horrible. But God's kept me alive through it all and kind of like softened on his approach to me and stuff like that. So I don't know. I guess this is kind of always, I guess it was always meant to happen, basically, whatever happened with me or not. But at this point, I'm just working on mending society. I don't know if I broke it or if I helped to break it after others started breaking it, or if I rallied the cause that is most just in face of being a nobody when I was against them first, firstly against them, or if like I was like really minor in one cause of socialism and stuff, and then on the ground floor with anti woke movement, and then like I'm kind of like moving towards a more harmonious approach between the different directions in life, paths, um, to heal society between left and right. I It might be that one, that last one. Um, but I do know that I've been relatively intuitively prophetic, not like divine revelation, but like intuitively predictive and accurate, and instructive. If I were listened to on a matter of a lot of different things, I've been ahead of the curve intuitively in developments in woke or anti-woke kind of things, typically speaking, um, quite often. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of like wasn't like, oh, that's ridiculous. I'm not Palpatine, because like I was woke before it was cool, and then I was anti-woke before it was cool, and I don't know if I was like making I don't know if I made the woke movement bigger and then made the anti-woke movement bigger. You know what I mean? Like that's the Palpatine angle that I'm not sure about. Because I know I've been ahead of the curve in my analysis and intuition and stuff like that quite often. And it's like, okay, well, like if I'm a leader in any way, shape, or form, in terms of like leading development of thoughts, and I rabble roused one group, and then I rabble roused the opposite group. Like, what does that make me? Right? Like that's why I'm not sure about it, because I know I was ahead of the curve in my analysis and intuition quite often throughout the years in developments. Um, there's another possible angle to this, by the way, which is the woke movement was necessary for the anti-woke movement to emerge for the truest expression of themselves, so that they could be filtered and then understood properly in their own context, so that we can reunite society without the flotsam and jetsam and silt and impurities of the previous ages, for accurate analysis of what is good for what, if that makes sense. So that it was always meant to split society so that it could be reunited, minus the pollution of left by right and the pollution of right by left, for the purest understanding of what is truly leftist, what is truly right wing, and then finding the middle ground between them, and so on. Because our society had lost its way in terms of up and down, left and right, forward and backwards, in regards to what is actually what, in regards to how these things actually go. So it's about separating so we can define that particular thing, and then remap its connections, minus, like it's like the difference between like one block of clay and another block of clay that's a different color, as opposed to like mushing them together and it just forms into gray, if that makes sense. Sort of like a process of developing definitions for things so that we can accurately figure out how they're actually connected. Sort of like an experiment to split the atom, or like a the CERN reactor in regards to combining atoms, right? Like it's like a bit of a like everything's floopty-doopty, and we're trying to redefine things, not in the sense of like new definitions, but like, well, maybe slightly new. I mean, there's nothing new under the sun technically, but like, you know what I mean. Um, like, kind of redefine, not new define or new speak, but redefine accurately what is what, left and right, forwards, backwards, up and down, so that we can actually remap our actual proper relations with each other and what we're good for and what we need others for and so on. For a harmonious society that understands itself and each other and so on. And understands friends and enemies, understands allies and um, rivals, understands um, clients and masters. Like the whole system basically needs to be remapped in some sense, for a proper foundational understanding of the relations and behaviors and principles and connections and likes, dislikes between the various types of people for accuracy's sake, so that we don't feel betrayed when someone's true to themselves in some way or other, because we just go, oh no, they're that thing. And just about like it's not just about like, oh, I understand them, therefore I like them. You can understand them a little bit and not like them that much, but it's about like lowering the level of hostility to a reasonable level, and having a strong sense of justice for bad behavior that is very malicious. And everything is about definition in regards to actually doing that properly, basically. Definition and relation.